Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Nonprofit, a podcast and YouTube channel where we talk with some of today's most innovative leaders about how to build and scale the nonprofits of tomorrow. I'm Ted Vaughn, host of Future Nonprofit, co-author of Culture Built My Brand, and co-founder of Historic. And today we have an amazing guest. Emmanuel Trinity was rescued off the streets of Africa by the gift of technology. And now today, many years later, runs era92, a nonprofit dedicated to creating an Africa where young people have access to life-changing technology, education, financial resources, and meaningful employment. Please check out all the Future Nonprofit podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts or right here on YouTube. And join me as we unpack the stories and lessons from today's most innovative leaders about how to build and scale the nonprofits of tomorrow. I have just a simple, easy question. If you had to describe to a 5-year-old what it is you do for a living, what would you say?
I would say that I go out in the slums of, Uganda, pick up young people that need skills. I give them the skills they need. And then after that, I go and find organizations in the UK and the US, and they employ us to do their graphic design, video, and anything else that they need. And that way, they are able to get a service, but also they are also able to create jobs for young people in Uganda.
So I want to ask another question. If you're going to speak in a really, really big room, so you're going to go talk to a lot of people in a big space, what piece of music do you want to be playing when you walk in the room?
I would like some cool reggae music playing in the room.
Is that the primary, like the musical style of the area that you're in?
No, but our music was influenced a lot by Bob Marley and Buju Banton and the people from Jamaica. And so, I grew up listening to nice reggae, that defined my childhood. So, I can feel like some reggae bass. That would be great. Yeah.
I want to start with this question. So everybody doing this type of work, like working for missions and people and causes bigger than themselves, there's something in their past, something in their story of origin, growing up, maybe a parent or a grandparent or something happened that kind of set them on this path. What was it for you? Was it a parent, a grandparent, a situation, something you saw? Like what's one of those stories that for you has shaped you into the person you are today?
I think, it's straightforward that my story is definitely connected to my childhood growing up. I was on the streets at the age of 9. And the way I got there is when, I was born to a single mother. My mom was abused at the age of 17. When she got pregnant, she had to leave the village because her mom and parents couldn't allow her to raise a child with no dad. And at the same time, my dad decided to not take care of her. So we left. She left. I was 3 months old, and she ended up in the city. And anyone in the city who didn't have money during that time, so she ended up sleeping under the tree for about 3 months until she heard of a community called Kosovo. And it was named after the Kosovo of Yugoslavia because of the crime and the killings that was happening. So any normal child that didn't go to school in that slum, they ended up in crime, fighting and sorts of, bad violences. And so that's how my life happened. So I joined the streets at the age of 9, and I spent 4 years on the streets until I was rescued at the age of 9. So if there is one moment, it's that moment when I was rescued from the streets, given an opportunity, because by the time I was being rescued, one lady asked me, what's one thing that we can give you that you never go back on the streets? And I told them, if you give me a computer, I would never go back on the streets. And they did. And that piece of gadget captured me from what the streets were offering, and I teleported into a new world of possibilities. And I started training myself on how to design things on the internet using YouTube and some tutorials that, that time they used to take screenshots of every step on how to do anything. And so for me, I have this statement that brilliance is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So many young people in the slums had the skills and the urge to learn, but they didn't get the opportunities that I got. And that's why 99% of the young people I grew up with, they end up in prison. Others are having families of 6 kids. So their brilliance wasn't tapped. And for me, that's one thing that is leading me, that because I believe that under this chaos in the slums in Africa, there is untapped brilliance that we need to tap. And so that's one thing that pushes me back to go and run Era92 to make sure that I can help more young people.
I love that real clear connection between your story and what you're doing today. I mean, it's obvious, it's clear, it's unavoidable. My guess is that most of the people listening to this show have no clue what the slums means. So I want you to give us an understanding. When you're in that space, what are you hearing, seeing, feeling? What's it like to actually be there as a human being?
First thing, as I, teleport back into what I used to feel as a young boy, first of all, just listen to chaos everywhere. Borders, cyclers, people running, people shouting, drunkards, and then people abusing each other. There's a fight over there. Now that's what that's your surrounding. Then the next thing is the smell of sewage. Because most of the slums that you have in Uganda or maybe in India, most of people don't have public toilets. So the sewage or the drainage is broken. And the trenches in Amedistat. And I remember very well that in our community, in our slum, there was a big trench that was carrying sewage from the main city center. Throughout our slums, every house was built under there was sewage flowing. So the smell was bad. And there is also a sense of, hopelessness, that it's like you ending up in a refugee camp knowing that maybe this is how your life is going to end up. Because very few people, like, if you grow up in a normal community, someone goes to a university, they end up in Harvard, and they end up getting a good job. You know the lineage of how many people are going to be transformed in your community. In ours, anytime you hear someone was killed, they was taken to prison, someone was bewitched, that's how I can describe Islam. It's just a filthy, hopeless type of community that anyone I wouldn't wish to end up or growing up in.
So you're given this computer, and this computer becomes in many ways your ticket, your way out. What was that journey like? How did you leverage? You learned, but you can learn, but still be stuck. How did you learn and get unstuck? What was the opportunity? What was the moment, the person? How did that work?
I think that's why I love the internet. I think the internet was a big, tool that leveled the ground for us. As I told you, like, when you're in the slum, what you see is hopelessness around you. But that's when I entered into Facebook. That's when I logged into MySpace during that time. I logged into the penny pool, right? And I started really connecting with different people on the internet and see their feed and see there's more than what the slums are offering. And that way I started admiring and realizing that there's actually another life that I can actually tap into. And then there's a platform that came for designers. It was called Behance. And when that platform came and I started connecting with other designers out there that are doing amazing work, I was like, I'm not giving up. And the light bulb moment for me was when I first made my first money from this graphic designing thing. I designed a poster for someone and they gave me about $5. I'm like, if I can make $5 in the slums where I'm seated, if I push this thing more, maybe I could make more. So I was lucky that that internet connected me to a lot of people, and that really lifted my limiting beliefs that there is more beyond the slums, beyond what the slums are offering. So, yeah.
So you are an entrepreneur. Clearly you have entrepreneurial business, make money. And at the same time, you're a humanitarian leading this movement. How do those two things combine? How does it combine that you're an entrepreneur, business, but social good, human good, giving back? Where do those two things meet for you?
I think they met in the conjunction of a frustration. First of all, I would say, I don't know, maybe there was an entrepreneurial spirit within me, but I wasn't looking at starting a business. I really wanted to be a graphic designer. That was my first initial goal. But what happened is everyone who grew up in the slums and they started getting any opportunity, they wanted to start a charity to help people. For me, in this particular time, when I got an opportunity to start to, if I can help people, I didn't want to help them in a way charities used to help us, because the charities used to come in the slums, they give us food, but we stayed on the streets. They used to give us the clothing, but we stayed on the streets. And so for me, I had a very distinctive desire that I wanted to be different. And I realized that what really contributed to my economic growth and transforming throughout the slums was some type of economic activity that I was able to transact. But what other, charities weren't giving us an opportunity to transact. And I have one belief that the first way to eradicate poverty is putting money into people's pockets. And so when I was thinking about what am I going to be able to do to help young people, I realized that I can actually run a business in graphic designing, an agency that is actually giving life skills to young people, and then finally employ them within my, social business, because I really wanted to create jobs. And that's where the connection from the need that I really saw in my community and the business minds connect. And this happened when I actually read a book from Muhammad Yunus on how to run a social business. That book gave me practical tactics on how to run a social enterprise, a social business, whose purpose is to actually make a good in the community. And then after, I went and read another book called Get Beyond Better, The World Getting Beyond Better, which also transformed my journey. So, it's been a learning journey over and over, but for me, that was a spark. I really wanted to provide long-lasting impact in the lives of young people.
I have so many questions about social enterprise and how you understand flourishing and human good, but I want to just bring us back to the story of era92. So era92 Creative, that's an interesting name. What's the story of origin behind it?
It's kind of sad, actually, that in my life growing up, I came across multiple attempts to lose my life. And that happened when, I remember very well, the time one of my closest friends was killed. And I was the one to die on that same day. And when all these incidents, I can count about 6 incidents, when literally my life was the one to go, but instead I was protected, by God. And when that happened, when I was coming up with a name, really my passion was, I didn't want to do anything other than helping people. And I realized that I was kept alive for a purpose. For me to stay alive and be able to do what I was doing in era92 or everything in business was for a purpose. And so that purpose was the time that I'm here on earth. That is the era. That's where era comes in. And then 92 was the year that I was born. So I have a strong feeling that my existence on earth and my contributions towards the livelihoods of young people across Africa is why I was kept alive and not to lose my life in everything that happened in the slums.
Is any part of era92 funded by donors, or is it completely supported through the business model?
Yeah, so we are 70% funded by the business model, and eventually we started it off by, as a business model, but, our model has been attractive to NGOs and other partners that are wanting to actually do the right thing in Africa. And so right now we are partnering with other NGOs, but through, I will have a program called the Elevate program, whereby we are turning digital classrooms. We are turning shipping containers into digital classrooms, and then we send them into rural areas and slum areas. And that way, it can be funded by anyone for them to actually provide the rightful skills for young people remotely through our digital classrooms. So that's the way we are actually trying to expand across Africa.
That's amazing. So what does the future look like? If you think about the next 3 years, sometimes the future can be so far away it feels abstract or hard to imagine. But let's just think about 3 years. In 3 years from today, what is different? What is better about Era 92?
We have this goal, strict goal to create 100,000 skill jobs. But we've broken that down into stages. And so in the first 3 years, we want to create 10,000 skill jobs. And we've walked a journey that so far we have created, 2,081 jobs for young people across Africa. And our goal is now to grow rapidly and expand this across the continent. And so I look at Era 92 as an organization that has become a voice into this topic that I always talk about, that of unlocking brilliance amid its chaos in Africa. And so I believe that we'll have contributed to a creation of a lot of jobs through inspiring other organizations to do the right thing, but also on our hands, we'll have been able to create or connect at least 100,000 skill jobs. We will have been able to connect 10,000 young people to global opportunities and local opportunities in Africa.
One of the things you've said, and I see on the website, is this distinction between alleviating poverty and creating prosperity. There's a difference between those two things. Speak to that difference, because I think that's a profound idea that some nonprofits miss.
Yes. I love that statement, and because I've really taken some time to think about it. And we normally do what we normally do what we do in life because of sometimes the vocabulary of the things that we use. And I make it simple, is that poverty alleviation. And when I go in a community today and I say I want to, alleviate poverty, it's gonna really direct me to the same things. Alleviating poverty, you're gonna try to combat the problems in a community using some money. You're trying to combat the symptoms of poverty rather than it. That's where someone doesn't have food, someone doesn't have water, we are gonna bring water, because that's how we've defined poverty in that community. And then prosperity, on the other hand, is looking at the potential of the community, right? Both of them are looking at different things. The prosperity is like, what are the things that we're going to do in this community that is going to create the prosperity that generations and generations of this community are going to benefit from? That way, if you ask that question, Ted, I know you would come up with different solutions right away. Like, we want to create prosperity in Chicago. We are going to talk about investing. We are going to talk about talent. We're going to talk about different things. But if we say we're going to alleviate poverty in Chicago, we are going to go down to the streets where, all the young people are hanging out and say, how can we get them off the streets and give them food today? For me, that's how simply I explain it. And if we change the vocabulary that we want to create prosperity in the continent of Africa, we are actually going to come up with different results that are going to have long-lasting impact in the people that we are serving.
It's such a powerful idea that seems so obvious, but it gets so missed. Creating prosperity increases human dignity, and it inspires people out of their current situation. Reducing poverty keeps them in poverty. It just reduces it, and it doesn't really inspire them or give them much dignity.
Exactly. Now you put the right words around it. Yes.
There's this fantastic Jewish scholar named Abraham Heschel, and Abraham Heschel is famous for saying, words create worlds. And I think that's exactly right. Your point is the language we use becomes the ethos or the essence of what we do, of who we are, right? So those words matter. And I think that's why it's such a powerful idea. And it seems like in many ways you have this very specific vocabulary, very specific ideas. What are other key words or phrases or ideas behind the heart of Era 92?
Yeah, I think that was my next, type of vocabulary that I was gonna tell you that, often in the US, when you find anyone, that is trying to do anything in Africa, when you tell them or when you ask them, what are you doing in Africa? Oh, we are trying to help, we are trying to help the poor people. We are trying to help build wells. We are trying to help doing that. And I've never had, a few of them, say that, we are tapping into this untapped potential. We are looking out for, this business. So there's a few of them that are doing it, that have seen the opportunity. But that, thing alone is that, what are you doing in Africa? We are trying to discover one of the smartest brains in Africa. If the mass has, looked at Africa as a pool of talent, as resource, of, where you can invest your money, rather than, because the vocabulary of help makes it look like a disparate continent. And that has bracketed Africa for so many generations that it's actually very hard to take it away from people's mindset. And so that's another vocabulary that I believe that people should actually change. That, if you're helping people, that means they're always going to be down. They'll never get off there. They will never have dignity. They're just poor, right? But rather you say, what are these? That's why I say this statement, unlocking brilliance amidst chaos. I always tell people, it's true, yes. In Africa, there's a lot of chaos. There is corruption. There is, wars. There is so many things that are happening. But underneath this chaos, as any country that we've seen across the world, most of them are focused on their potential, on the brilliance of those people, few people that have actually benchmarked the prosperity and the transformation of their entire countries.
Love it. Okay. Tell me a story of somebody that you have helped through Era 92. What's the story that to you is maybe the flagship story or a recent story of transformation through social enterprise?
Wow. Where do I start? Okay. Right now you found me, and we've been working on a newsletter that is going out, just tomorrow. And, one of the headlines in that story, in that newsletter is from the edges of the slums and the traps of prostitution to becoming the COO, Chief Operations of the fastest growing outsourcing agents in Uganda called Era 92. And that's the story of Megan, who was the very first girl that I met when I was starting Era 92. This year, she became our Chief of Operations that is running the entire company. And I just, felt so bad because she was just here right now. She has just left. And she would have said hi.
I saw her walk out.
To me, there are so many stories. I would say, like, I've seen hundreds of young people, thousands of young people that have seen their lives transform. Some of them are in the US, some of them are in other parts of the continent. But for me, Megan, today, the story has reaffirmed of that brilliance is quite distributed, but opportunity is not. Who would ever know? Because this girl was at the age of selling her body because her dad was taking care of 6 siblings, fell off the building and broke his spinal cord. So Megan was actually stuck with a bedridden dad and 6 other siblings to feed. And when I met her, everyone in the community told her, you know what? If you're going to be able to make $1, $2 a day, you need to go and sell your body. And for me, that's what I was against, that young people shouldn't be reduced to the disparity of selling their bodies just to get $2, because they have the brains and the brilliance for them to be able to have dignifying jobs that can transform their lives. And that's the story of Megan.
If you're walking into a room to speak and you're going to be introduced as a blank leader, you can only have one word. Do you feel like you identify more as a business leader or as a nonprofit or social good humanitarian leader? Like, which one would you most choose if you could only choose one?
I would be a social good. I would be a social entrepreneur. I would if it was business, I've grown up to know how to run businesses, and if I do that, I would be gone far, because, I'd be, pocketing out of money, reinvesting it, and be able to scale and grow bigger. But the fact that I'm moving back to make sure that I'm pulling as many young people as I can to the pedestal, to the same table, that makes me fall in between. So I'd call myself a social entrepreneur, a social good.
My guess is that you're very aware of other nonprofits and other charities and other causes that are working in Africa. And my guess is that there's a lot about them that is frustrating. If you could have a magic wand and you could fix something about nonprofits serving Africa, what would you fix?
I would fix the budgets that end up in what we call services to people in poverty. And that's a lot of money. There is a slum here in where we work, and collectively it has received over $28 million ever since 2000, right? $28 million in donations, in charity programs that have really surfaced that organization, right? And I would say that $28 million in a radius, it's not a big slum, but it has over 30,000 people, right? In it. And that amount of money that has flowed into that thing, I would say that's one thing I've seen in so many nonprofits, that our money is trickling down in services that people get in, not to change their lives, but to survive still, which keeps them in poverty. And I would say if that can change and the money can really be moved towards things that are really creating things to put money into people's pockets, to create jobs, to build infrastructure that actually transform the community. Even like the slum, if someone comes and they build, normal houses and people move into those houses and pay, that would be even better, and take out the slums. So I have this mantra that the slums, as you're pouring money into them or other communities, they shouldn't expand, but they should shrink. But every slum in Africa, by the time it has grown at least 5 times, right? They are continuously expanding. That means we are adding onto the problem. So I would fix their budgets to, trickle down into people's pockets.
There's this charity that we've worked with called Water and the number 4. And they have the exact same conviction. They've seen so many wells be created that break. And the well's a commodity. The well breaks. Nobody in the community has the skills or resources to fix the well. So what good does that do if you have a well for 1 year, but then it breaks? So their model is social entrepreneurism. The people pay for the well, learn how to fix it. I mean, it's creating business.
Yeah. I mean, we need more of such organizations, because at the end of the day, if you're creating economic empowerment and economic activity for young people, Africa right now, we have the youngest population. I would say if you're doing anything in Africa today, it should be about how are we going to be able to put this young energy and turn it into positive energy. Because if we do not, it's going to actually trickle down into negative energy into our countries, riots, bad vices that will rise from these young people because they don't have productive work. And it's a resource that we should tap into. And I believe such organizations and others that are really blooming up, the more we create things that put money into people's pockets, the more and the faster we eradicate poverty and also solve as many issues in our continent.
What is the most challenging part of the work that you do? Is it leading the designers, ensuring they do good work? Is it scale? Is it fundraising? Is it what's the hardest thing for you as an owner and a leader of this thing? What's the biggest barrier or the most challenging piece of it for you?
Yeah, the mindset of our target audience. Yes. So our target audience is honestly international development organization, is companies in the US. Have this thing that Africa, the outsourcing industry alone is a $251 billion industry that is projected to double by 2035 to $540 billion. And what does that mean? That right now India has 51%, and you know what has Africa has? Africa has 3% of the outsourcing industry. But when you look at the population of Africa, it's 1.2 billion, and India is almost close to that. So we are almost close to the population, and we have the more young people that are being educated, very brilliant, vibrant young people. But because there is no demand, there's no people looking for engineers, for designers from Africa. Everyone who puts in Google, they're saying, I need someone from Philippines and India to do my side work, right? It's good. It has done some good. But now if you look at the trends, Africa is the next talent pool for the talent shortage across the world. And so for me, my biggest challenge is that many people that I talk to, I had to convince them that their work can actually be done in Africa. And until that mindset changes, the rest we can handle. We have, brilliant young people in our offices, young people that are willing to work, the attitude of the young people. There is a study that most young people, millennials or Gen Zs in the West, actually don't want to work. And then it's the opposite in Africa. People are being taken to speak in schools in America just to motivate young people. And then it's the opposite in Africa, where that young people are motivated, but then there's no opportunities for them. So that imbalance is what I look at as an opportunity that we can harness as Africa and the entire world to create millions of opportunities for young people.
So you have multiple social enterprises, right? There's the Creative, the Cafe, Era Elevate, the era92 fund. Multiple things. Do you see more over time, like as part of your vision, that there be multiple social enterprises that all have that same era92 brand? Or is your goal to scale the 6 that you have and to grow those?
Yes. So we are not creating any, but we have an opportunity to invest in other young entrepreneurs. It's part of our era92 fund goal. So maybe to explain it a little bit, we've transformed our organization into a conglomerate social enterprise. But the model is very simple: is to actually uplift the workforce in Africa and also create jobs for young people. So what we normally do right now, all those things are actually falling under a sequence, right, that we go through. So the first sequence, we identify young people through our Elevate program. The Elevate program is a school. We identify them, give them the skills they need through era92 Elevate. Then we place them through era92 Creative, which is the agency. We place them into other places of work. And then the final loop of our organization is finance, which is for young people who have gone through our programs that need capital. We actually finance them to start their own social businesses so that we can actually scale the job creation. So that's the routes that we take them through, or the journey that we take them through. And then the cafe is a community where it's on our property. So we have these businesses all in one place, and we call it an ecosystem, so that young people come and they get everything they need to transform their lives in one center. And that's how it works. So in our future, we are going to be able to scale these centers across the continent, across different districts and cities, so that we can be able to uplift as many young people as we can.
Do you see this expanding beyond Africa? Do you ultimately hope that this becomes a movement that is global, or that is in other key areas or markets?
Yeah, because my goal, as I say, 100,000 skill jobs is not going to be really entirely through our pipeline. My main goal is to actually inspire other organizations, other individuals that are out there that are actually willing and be willing to adapt such a program. And we've actually already starting the journey to do that. We have 3 organizations right now in Uganda that are going to start applying our model in the next year. And so that way, we are actually empowering more other organizations to do the right thing. And that way, if we do that on a scale, we see this thing taking over the entire world. Because for me, I'm all for young people because I know I believe they are the future. And I always believe that we cannot always build a future for our young people, but we can build them for the future.
I love your creative model of funneling dollars through multiple avenues. So you have donations, but opportunities for investment, but then you have a business model that is bringing in capital. I mean, I feel like more nonprofits over time need that kind of diversified model to stay alive. In fact, my guess is that over the next 5 years, 25% of nonprofits will close because it's a different world. It's a radically different world, especially in the global north, and dollars are flowing and working differently. Talk a little bit about this opportunity between investing, because you have the call to action, invest now, versus donating, which would just be giving.
Yes, definitely, because we have some economic, part of it, and we definitely actually receive investment, and that's why you see other social enterprises. And this is actually more into a form of debt financing that people, investors, or even donors can use philanthropy money to invest in income-generating businesses that create jobs, but also fuel our sustainability. Because for me, in the space of sustainability and for non-profit and organizations, I look at it in three dimensions. There is what we call financial sustainability. We talk about that a lot for non-profits. That how can you continue your work even when the donors have left? And for us, we have achieved financial sustainability. If the few donors cut off today, tomorrow will be open, the next day will be open, and the next year. And I pray that for many other organizations. Secondly, is what we call organizational sustainability. How long can your organization stay when the founder gets a problem? And then the last one is what we call impact sustainability. So those 3 aspects, impact sustainability is, if you live in a community, if era92 lives where we are right now, how long can our impact continue to be regenerated? So those are the key things that I definitely think of. And for us to achieve that, we realize that we can't only rely on donations, because we want for people to actually give us the debt financing or equity so that they can be able to also get a return on investment. Because that's way we can tell a different story about Africa, because the more we tell the charity and give us some money to do the work story, the more we don't change the narrative. But I believe the narrative has changed. We can also do business. We can transact in Africa, and you can get your money back with interest.
Here's my last question. What lessons, 1 or 2, have been the most profound learnings, the things that you've learned the most since starting this journey?
I think the very first thing is that the brilliance that God has given us as human beings. And when I started my work, I was still skeptical about so many things that are going to happen. And are we going to be able to pull this off? Are we going to have the right talent? But I've learned one thing, that in everything, especially the work that we're doing as people that are doing work in Africa, there's this profound gifting that everyone has. And if I have an opportunity to meet anyone today, I believe that I can be able to tap into their inner potential by definitely asking a few questions, because each and every one of us has their unique gifting. And if we look at each and everyone, that's one of the thing I've learned, that if I look at everyone, not with the solution that I brought to them, but with what they have inside them that I can tap to be able to transform their lives, then I could be able to transform each and everyone's life. And I've tried this thing with each and every young person who has come through our hands. And I'm like, we are not here to give you technology skills, but we are here to see and tap and be able to unlock your inner gifting. And for me, that's the profound lesson, because right now the world is putting so many people in a bracket. And I've learned not to put people in a bracket. I've learned that we are all on a different journey, and we have different giftings. And that has really shifted the way I do my work and how I, help young people, especially in Uganda.
That was fantastic. I want to just quickly focus on one thing. You talked about transforming people, and that's more than employment, more than opportunity, more than money. To what aspect are you involved in their transformation beyond just business and being able to, make a wage?
That's a very, very amazing question. I mean, like that's brilliant. That's smart, because definitely the Elevate program is not, as you said, it's a program. It's not you come, sit on a computer and go. And so we, I'm a Christian, and we have different aspects of touch points with these young people. And the very first thing when they come in is, as I said, we are able to learn and see and what is their really true potential. And then from there, we have programming that is designed to help them achieve that. So we are connecting to every person that goes through our program to a mentor. That's part of it. If Ted, you're there and you want to support a young boy in Africa, a young girl, we give you, one person for 6 months to work with them. We have other program like how do you sit on an interview? We have English classes. Some of the people we are working with are coming from Congo and they need to learn English because they are refugees. We have sales and entrepreneurship programs to help them also be able to learn how to sell their programs. So, and all this program is under our Elevate program, and you can see all the different aspects of the work that we are doing there. So it's not really we put money into your pocket. And then the discipleship of young people, those who can decide to walk the journey of Christianity, we also disciple them and empower them into their spiritual journey to be able to grow their journey in that aspect. So it's more tailored, and it has different aspects of it that actually brings a true transformation of someone, because you can have someone given skills, but they don't have good morals. You can have someone with the first year of training my young people. I had so brilliant young people, and I connected them to people in the US. They were sending typos, poor English, right? I was like, oh, this is not good. So we have email etiquettes, all those things that actually help them to become really global citizens and world-class talent.
We have to, at some point, do a second show about the dynamics of transformation and the way emotional, social, spiritual, financial, the way all these different things play together.
Yes.
And how, to what extent you can be responsible or accountable or able to truly help transform people in all of those aspects. So where do you focus? What do you do? It's like, it's a big question in my mind, especially for faith-based nonprofits that have that spiritual component. So, I
mean, like for me, I, on that point is like, it's like a balance. It's really very hard to strike the balance, but we need the balance. Why? You can see like many nonprofits, we love God, we love Jesus, but then most nonprofits are gonna push that to these young people, and then economically they don't have anything, they can't feed themselves, and that way down the road it's gonna break their faith in God, right? And so if we do that, balance them off, also see that economically they can participate in the world, they can face all these challenges, then we're actually bringing whole humans into the marketplace, which I'm excited about.
Thank you again, Trinity. I really appreciate your time and your efforts. And I think what you're doing is fantastic. And I've already sent the invest opportunity to a few people I know who I think would love this. So
all right, thank you.
Hopefully they'll be reaching out to you on Calendly to book time.
Yeah, and we talked through some ideas. Yes.
For more stories from experts in the industry and to learn how to take your nonprofit into the future, like this video, subscribe to our channel and podcast, and visit makehistoric.com/insights. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Ted Vaughn, and this is Future Nonprofit.